Welcome to Hidden Horizons, a channel where we uncover the most fascinating and overlooked stories from world history. Here, you'll journey into tales hidden by time and terrain, told through calm narration and evocative storytelling. If you enjoy discovering new perspectives on our world's secrets, please like and subscribe to support future explorations into forgotten lands and mysteries waiting to be revealed. In this video, we begin an ascent into the enigmatic Himalayan kingdom societies shaped by the heights of the earth, remote and veiled in myth. We'll explore how their isolation carved out unique political systems, spiritual beliefs, and extraordinary ways of survival. Join us as we unravel the secrets of life perched among the clouds, where the ordinary laws of history bend to the will of altitude and mystery. Chapter 1. Veiled Summit. The Secrets of Elevation. The story opens with the soaring silhouettes of the Himalayan peaks, cloaked in swirling mists and silence. Massive ridges vanish into rolling clouds, carving the sky with age-old stone. Here, the world feels suspended between earth and ether, a place untouched and shrouded by nature's defiance. The mountains form a barrier, a guardian, and a prison keeping secrets tightly. Day breaks over jagged summits, the first light weaving silver through tendrils of fog. The air is thin and biting, each breath a rare commodity. Deep valleys echo with the distant call of wind, while glacial rivers snake through ancient rock. Life clings to the cliffs, where little grows and the sun is a fleeting guest. In every direction the land feels mysterious, a world apart, resisting easy entry and demanding reverence. Long ago, these mountains whispered only to hardy travellers and wandering traders, each step a gamble against altitude and the unknown. Blizzards could erase all traces within moments, while unpredictable landslides and avalanches shaped harsh destinies. The isolation was never just physical, it was spiritual, woven into the rhythms and rituals of those who dared to call these high places home, forcing a life defined by distance from the rest of the world. Within these valleys, the Himalayas shaped both landscape and legend. Stories tell of hidden monasteries clinging to impossible cliffs, their prayer flags flickering in fierce winds. Myths grew in the shadows of stone, nurturing beliefs that spirits guarded every peak. These tales were passed quietly, shared on cold nights around flickering fires. Here, reality and fable mixed, forming the foundations of kingdoms wrapped in secrecy and wonder. Environment was a relentless teacher. Seasons turned, with little mercy frost creeping down from the heights even in months meant for warmth. Isolation forced adaptation or extinction. Local kingdoms honed knowledge of the elements, learning to read the clouds and respect the avalanche's thunder. Survival depended on the subtle balance between human ingenuity and surrender to the highlands' uncompromising rules, forging a society in quiet resilience. Political systems here could not mirror the flatland empires. Clans settled on windswept plateaus, their loyalties bound by altitude and scarcity. Authority was as layered as the mountains, shaped by elders, monks and rulers, whose power had to answer not only to people, but to the raw unpredictability of the land itself. Decision-making was often communal, blending tradition with the necessity of enduring the ever-present hardships. Spiritual traditions flourished in tandem with the peaks. Many believed that gods and ancestral spirits inhabited each mountain, turning every climb into a pilgrimage and every pass into holy ground. Rituals honoured both seen and unseen festivals marked by fire and chanting, offerings carried high along vertiginous trails. Spirituality became a survival tool, building connections deep enough to endure even when the winds howled and hope was scarce. These kingdoms, hidden above the clouds, endured not just through strength, but through wisdom learning from hardship, preserving knowledge in charts and carved stones. As travellers approached, the first sight of watchtowers and stone terraces offered not only protection, but a testament to the ingenuity of those who refused to be erased by distance. The Himalayan silence guarded more than echoes. It preserved an enduring legacy defined by elevation and separation. Chapter 2. Footsteps in the Snow. The Genesis of Isolation. In the swirling silence of the Himalayas, the first signs of human life appeared like gentle imprints in the snow. These early settlers arrived as wanderers, pressing onward despite overwhelming cold and daunting peaks. Each footstep they took was a whisper of hope against the formidable landscape, marking the very beginning of humanity's long relationship with these heights. Tracing the origins of Himalayan settlement, we uncover traces of ancient journeys. Archaeological evidence reveals families and nomads drawn to the foothills, lured by rivers and valleys that promised survival. Over generations, these people grew attuned to the rhythm of the winds and the shifting snow, learning to read the land's quiet language. The story of settlement is one of adaptation, a complex dance between humanity and a wild, isolated terrain. Migration into the Himalayas was never a single, decisive event. Instead, waves of intrepid explorers, herders, and dreamers slowly wove themselves into the mountain's fabric. Each caravan carried new ideas, languages, and customs, yet the climb and the cold demanded a willingness to adapt. The journey transformed them, fostering deep bonds with the mountains and sculpting a resilience that would define future generations. Physical geography shaped every aspect of early Himalayan life. Valleys carved between immense peaks served as sanctuaries, while sheer cliffs acted like walls against outsiders. Over centuries, glaciers, deep forests, and roaring rivers formed boundaries stronger than any built by human hands. This rugged landscape set the stage for profound isolation. Communities grew up separated by miles of daunting wilderness, each forging its own path in solitude. Isolation in these mountains was not accidental, it was born of necessity. As snows piled high in winter and monsoon rains tested every hillside, people learned to rely on small, close-knit groups. The silence between settlements became a canvas for new traditions and beliefs. Each community developed unique rituals and survival strategies, molded by the challenges of scarcity, altitude, and the mercurial moods of the weather. Isolation often cultivates mystery, and in the Himalayas, legend and history became deeply entwined. Ancient tales tell of wanderers who vanished in swirling snows or appeared at dawn, guided by dreams. Rituals honoring mountain spirits emerged, inspired by real fears and natural wonders. Over centuries, physical separation transformed into a kind of sacred guardianship. Unique customs thrived precisely because they were protected by distance. Adaptation was an act of quiet resilience. Early settlers learned to grow barley and millet in thin soils, build stone shelters against the wind, and gather firewood from scattered groves. They watched animal migrations, tracking herds that could survive the biting cold. Over time, simple techniques gave way to ingenious systems irrigation channels, high-altitude storage pits, and communal granaries, a testament to human ingenuity flourishing in the face of hardship. Language, too, became a vessel for survival in isolation. Mountain dialects evolved, woven from neighbouring tongues, but shaped by the difficulty of travel. Words emerged for the changing hues of sunlight on snow or the first distant call of a bird in spring. Oral storytelling bridged the spaces between generations. Tales of origin, migration, and perseverance helped keep memory and identity alive, high above the clouds. Ceremonies around hearths provided warmth from more than just fire. They were foundations of community. During long winters, people told stories of ancestors and the spirits animating each mountain. Musical traditions, drums echoing through silent valleys, reminded listeners of shared origins. These rituals gave purpose to the solitude and knit individuals together, forging bonds that would endure despite centuries of separation. As centuries passed, the deep isolation gave birth to kingdoms and cultures found nowhere else. The mountains became more than barriers. They became protectors of tradition and innovation. In tracing the footsteps left in the snow, we glimpse a journey of survival and ingenuity. The legacy of these early settlers remains preserved in silent valleys, resonating still, hidden above the clouds where the world seems untouched by time. Chapter 3. Walls of Stone and Clouds, Fortresses and Villages. High above the clouds, where icy winds sweep across rugged peaks, Himalayan kingdoms raised their defences. Here, walls were not only barriers, but silent witnesses to centuries of hope and hardship. Every stone stacked with care, every path carved into cliffside. These structures are as much a part of the mountain as the ridges themselves, shaped to endure both nature's fury and the ambition. Within these kingdoms, fortresses with dark stoned walls stand guard over valleys blanketed in mist. Their towers rise as sentinels, keeping watch over winding trails and distant ridgelines. Defensive features blend seamlessly into hillsides, merging human intention with the raw power of the mountains. Behind these walls, generations found safety, their families protected from uncertain weather and the shadows of potential threats lurking in narrow passes. The monasteries, often perched on impossible ledges, seem drawn by the heavens rather than built by human hands. Their whitewashed walls shine against the sombre stone, catching the first light of dawn. Here, monks and villagers have gathered for centuries in shared sanctuary, their chants and prayers carried by the mountain wind. The monastery becomes a spiritual anchor, its architecture blending seamlessly with the land, sheltering wisdom as old as the peaks themselves. Secluded villagers nestle in the folds of towering cliffs, their homes clinging tightly to each contour. Wooden beams and stone foundations work together, resisting landslides and the weight of endless snow. Life in these remote places depends on collaboration. Even the houses are arranged to protect one another from storms that roll in, suddenly, leaving only silence and a soft veil of cloud behind. The village survives by adapting, shaping and reshaping itself to the mountain. Walls here are not just physical divisions. Between every stone lies a story, a family's memory, a prayer for spring, a lesson in patience. Winter storms batter roofs and test foundations, yet the buildings endure, standing as quiet testaments to endurance and ingenuity. Narrow lanes wind through the settlements, their edges guarded by thick stone, making every village a living maze where safety and community intertwine in the shadow of ancient fortresses. Many fortresses share features shaped by centuries of threat and adaptation. Watchtowers stand at the highest points, offering wide views of snowy passes. Thick, sloping walls deflect the power of avalanches and invading armies alike. Some structures are partly hidden, tucked under overhanging cliffs or dug into rock faces, making them nearly invisible from afar. It is a dance between concealment and strength, with every detail designed for survival in the harshest. Villagers use local materials, quarried stone, sun-bleached wood, and packed earth-creating shelters that seem to grow from the slopes. Decorative flourishes are rare but meaningful. Carved window frames to keep out wind, prayer flags fluttering above rooftops, splashes of ochre paint to brighten earthen hues. Even in simplicity, every element has a purpose, each adapted to withstand freezing nights and the relentless breath of the mountain. Life remains intertwined with the architecture's quiet resilience. Monasteries also play a defensive role, their solid gates and inner courtyards serving as places of last refuge during times of strife. Scrolls and religious treasures are hidden within thick walls, protected by silence and stone. Here, the sacred and the practical coexist. Spiritual peace flourishes behind buttresses built to resist earthquakes and siege. The air hums with old prayers as architecture shapes not just the body's shelter, but the spirit's enduring calm. The season's changes demand constant vigilance. In summer, paths are cleared of debris, walls patched and strengthened, and storerooms filled with grain for the hard months ahead. Winter brings isolation, with snow piling high on rooftops, testing old coping strategies. Villagers rely on traditions, festivals, shared work, and communal spaces fostering unity within stone enclosures. The architecture is never finished. It is a living dialogue with the mountain, full of memory and adaptation. It is a living dialogue with the mountain full. To walk among these fortresses and villages is to step into a living story. Each echoing hallway and winding lane reveals the tremendous resilience of those who shaped their destiny at the world's rooftop. Here, architecture is not just shelter, but a symbol of bond between people and place. Within walls of stone and clouds, the Himalayan kingdoms have crafted not only dwellings, but sanctuaries for spirit, culture, and memory, hidden, enduring, and inseparable from the land itself. Chapter 4. Echoes on the Wind. Language and Law. High in the Himalayas, language became not just a means of communication, but a shelter against forgetting. Here, ancient words spun like threads through mist and stone, carrying memories across generations. Oral traditions grew strong, shaped by the echoing silence and shifting winds, as elders spoke stories around flickering fires, ensuring that wisdom would not dissipate. Surrounded by steep cliffs and tumbling rivers, these communities preserved their histories not in ink, but in voice. Every lullaby, tale, and riddle passed from parent to child, became a living archive. Songs telling of creation, hardship and hope were woven into daily life, their melodies rising with the dawn and settling with the dusk. In the hush of isolation, words were given shape and weight, transformed into guardians for the community's identity. Natural barriers guarded these languages, making each village's dialect distinct and resonant with ancient roots. Mountains and avalanches isolated speakers, allowing words and expressions to evolve undisturbed by outside tongues. A single valley might hold a vocabulary found nowhere else on Earth. Such profound seclusion fostered creativity, as old legends adapted each winter and new songs grew from the rhythms of wind, rain, and the labour of surviving at dizzying heights. Storytelling, in these Himalayan kingdoms, became an act of quiet resistance. Myths and histories, shared under starlit skies or between the stone walls of homes, kept alive memories of great migrations or fierce battles with storms. The tellers fashioned spoken maps, guiding listeners through time as surely as shepherds led flocks across the cliffs. Through stories, children learned the boundaries of their world and the mysteries that lay beyond. These oral traditions were not merely entertainment, they were survival tools. Tales warned of treacherous paths or taught the signs of an imminent avalanche. Riddles and proverbs encoded advice for planting and harvesting in alpine soils. Songs marked the cycles of weather and the rituals for placating both ancestors and mountain spirits. In this way, knowledge found its home in memory and melody, perpetually renewed with each new telling. Some stories were meant only for certain ears. Secret lore was entrusted to those chosen by elders, its words softly breathed in quiet corners away from the casual chatter. Legends guarded instructions for sacred festivals or hidden routes through the mountains, shared only on special nights when the valley was blanketed in snow. Such traditions created invisible bonds, linking generations in solemn trust and shared responsibility. Isolation lent the spoken word a solemn power. With each telling, listeners would memorize and reflect, knowing that a forgotten tale might vanish forever. This awareness infused the act of storytelling with reverence. Pauses hung heavy, and even a misremembered phrase could shift a story's meaning. Elders became living libraries, treasured for the countless histories and songs within them, passing on their burdens of memory to attentive youth. Language adapted to the environment, adopting the cadence of the wind or the call of distant birds. Words for snow, mist, and the many moods of rain grew rich and numerous, painting the landscape in sound. Dialects developed unique ways to express longing or belonging, shaped by the experience of being perched above the clouds. Each phrase carried echoes of rock, river, and sky, etching a distinct identity for the people who whispered them. Even as kingdoms changed and travellers arrived bearing news from abroad, these oral traditions endured. Some stories merged with new influences, while others retreated, carefully guarded by elders wary of outsiders. The songs continued to evolve, yet remained fundamentally true to their origins, always offering comfort, counsel, and a sense of place in the shifting world. Through every upheaval, the echoes of ancestral voices lingered in the mountain air. Today, efforts endure to keep these fading voices alive. Recordings are made, and elders are honored for their memories. Young people learn ancient psalms, sometimes blending them with modern music, ensuring that the spirit of the Himalayas persists. In this way, the wind still carries echoes of those first fireside tales, connecting past and present and reminding all who listen of the enduring power of language and lore high above the clouds. Chapter 5. The Pulse of Belief. Spiritual Altitude. High above the clouds, spiritual traditions shaped by mountain isolation pulse quietly through every stone and prayer flag. Here, faith is sculpted by vast skies, harsh winds, and the silent company of peaks watching over centuries. In this chapter, we step into an atmosphere thick with reverence, exploring how belief and the mountains became one, each shaping the other in profound, unseen ways. Nestled in the hearts of these lofty kingdoms are ancient monasteries, silent sanctuaries where wisdom echoes softly through winding corridors. Monks trace patterns of devotion on time-worn floors, the hush punctuated only by whispered prayers and the distant toll of a bell. These sacred spaces were fashioned for stillness, designed to draw a seeker's mind inward and upward toward unseen heights, embodying the quest for clarity in a skyward world. Isolation nurtured spiritual traditions utterly unique to these mountain realms. Secluded villages honoured deities said to reside in every rock, tree and gust of wind. Legends spiralled around the peaks, woven into every ritual. Without the bustle of outside worlds, religious life sank deep roots, rich with local myth and meditative wisdom. Here, the mountains were not barriers, but powerful, living presences guiding every belief and rite. Monasteries perched on sheer cliffs seemed to grip the sky, their prayer flags trembling in crystal air. Within stone walls, daily rhythms unfold as they have for centuries, chanting softly before dawn, crafting intricate mandalas of coloured sand as offerings to mountain spirits. Daily practice, patience, and silence link generations of seekers, building a bridge between earth and sky, the sacred and the ordinary, in spaces where time itself feels hushed. Mountain deities loom large in Himalayan spirituality, each peak crowned with legend, each valley watched over by guardian spirits. Shrines mark places where gods are said to reveal themselves in dreams and storms. Through offerings and respectful silence, locals seek harmony with the unseen, believing the land itself listens and responds. In these high realms, nature and the divine blur, their boundaries lost in swirls of cloud and prayer. Meditative retreats high in the mountains provide a rarefied refuge. Here, amid cold stars and vast emptiness, practitioners withdraw from worldly ties to listen for wisdom in the wind. Wrapped in simple robes, breathing icy air, seekers learn to quiet the restless mind. The mountain's solitude becomes a partner in meditation, teaching patience, humility, and absorption until the silence itself feels sacred, a teacher older than words. Sacred rituals in these regions are shaped by their environment. Ceremonies fuse chant, incense, and rhythmic drumming under open sky or flickering torchlight. Seasonal festivals celebrate the shifting moods of the mountains, petitioning spirits for safe passage, bountiful harvests, or simple protection from avalanches. Each step, song, and gesture feels deeply intentional, offering to the living spirit of place, trusting in reciprocity. The architecture of Himalayan sacred spaces reflects a reverence for elevation and stillness. Monasteries, stupas, and stone hermitages are anchored in rock or balanced on ridges, built to withstand fierce winds while seeming to float above the clouds. Interior spaces echo the serenity of the world outside, open to both the chanting of monks and the roar of the wind, reminding all who enter that the sacred is found equally in quiet devotion. Amid these heights, spiritual teachings revolve around impermanence mirroring melting snows and shifting mists. Lessons stress compassion, detachment, and respect for all creatures sharing the harsh landscape. Wisdom is handed down through parables shaped by blizzards and blooming meadows, each story a reminder that existence here is fleeting and precious. In the pulse of belief, mountain dwellers find purpose in the everyday miracle of simply being present, here and now. Stepping into these sacred high places, a sense of mystery endures. Mist drapes over prayer wheels, turning endlessly in the wind, while ancient chants rise and fall with the passing clouds. The spiritual altitude of these kingdoms resonates in both silence and song, inviting listeners to pause, breathe, and feel the mountain's quiet wisdom settle softly within. Here, faith and landscape remain eternally entwined, forever shaping those who dare to seek. Chapter 6. Governing the Sky. Political Realms and Power. Above the clouds, kingdoms emerged unlike any seen below. The people here shaped their leaders and laws to the mountain winds and the shifting snows, forging alliances on narrow ridges and feuding across valleys shrouded in mist. Geography was both a shield and a test, dispersing the reach of rulers and demanding clever adaptation. Authority was as changeable as the weather itself in these lofty. Rulers in the high Himalayas wore many faces. Some were distant monarchs, their words carried between peaks by trusted messengers. Others were guiding elders or high priests, respected for wisdom more than decree. The struggles for power in the sky depended on who could earn loyalty amidst harshness, and who could strike the delicate balance between tradition and adaptation. In every approach, the mountain shaped both the ruler and the ruled. Alliances in these kingdoms were as fragile and enduring as the snowy passes connecting them. Neighbouring realms at times shared feasts and festivals, creating pacts for trade or shared defence. Yet, The bonds were often tested by famine, ambition, or the whims of spirits believed to inhabit the clouds. Rivalries, sharpened by isolation, simmered beneath the rituals of friendship, turning valleys into quiet stages for hidden political drama. Within a single kingdom, authority would often splinter. Chiefs in remote hamlets answered to a king only in name, governing their own slopes by consensus or with an iron hand, depending on custom. This decentralized web of power was shaped by the mountain's geography, with its natural barriers demanding local autonomy. The distant court might issue edicts, but true rule was established by those who knew the ridges and ravines firsthand. Religion was inseparable from politics above the clouds. Sacred mountains drew pilgrims and power-seekers alike, for it was believed that the ruler's right to lead was granted by the mountain spirits. Temples became both sanctuaries and political hubs, where alliances formed under the watchful gaze of hermits and monks. In seeking favour from the divine, rulers also secured their legitimacy, weaving spiritual authority into the fabric of their realm. Conflict was inevitable. Skirmishes erupted over grazing land, sacred sites, or even the control of a narrow mountain pass. Yet outright war was risky in such isolated and resource-scarce environments. More often, disputes resolved through negotiation, ritual displays of strength, or intermarriage. The hardships of the Himalayan world demanded innovation in both diplomacy and conquest, blending tradition with pragmatic survival. Seasons shaped the political rhythms of sky kingdoms. During the harshest winters, power often shifted as valleys became cut off and communities relied on strong local leaders to survive. When spring thawed the mountain paths, envoys would venture out to renew old alliances or test the strength of rivals. This cyclical hibernation and revival of political ties mirrored the landscape's own pattern of endurance and renewal. In these realms, messages were as valuable as soldiers. Royal couriers braved blizzards, carrying tokens of trust or warnings across dizzying peaks. Secret agreements depended on coded signals, colours of prayer flags, or the pattern of carried gifts. Communication was slow, and that slowness bred caution, patience, and a unique kind of political intrigue. Every message carved its own trail through stone and snow. Stories from these kingdoms live on in legends and whispered history. Tales tell of wise queens who united villages with gentle rule, and of chiefs defiant as the eagles circling their mountain thrones. These stories reveal a world where power must be earned and constantly renewed, a world shaped as much by belief and landscape as by ambition. Through them, we glimpse the hidden workings of highland states. As the chapter closes, we leave behind a world balanced between earth and sky, where every ruler faced the trials of landscape, legacy, and belief. In the next part of our journey, we descend from these peaks to explore how the everyday lives of people were guided by the political systems we've seen unfold. Their legacy still echoes in the quiet hush above the clouds, reminding us of the mountain's enduring power. Chapter 7. Seeds in the Frost, Survival and Ingenuity. In the cold embrace of the Himalayan heights, survival was not merely about enduring, it was about adaptation and inventiveness. Settlers gazed upon barren, stony slopes and wondered how life could flourish. Yet necessity became the mother of innovation, inspiring ingenious practices. As we step into this chapter, we uncover the wisdom and resourcefulness that turned frostbitten. Life at altitude demanded extraordinary resourcefulness. Where fertile valley floors were rare, communities fashioned terraced fields into the flanks of mountains. Each stone carefully set in place was an act of hope, transforming sheer inclines into arable land. These terraces captured precious soil and water, creating small sanctuaries where crops could root. Here, ingenuity met perseverance with every seed sown and every harvest reaped. Ancient irrigation methods played a central role. Spring meltwaters and hidden streams were carefully channeled along intricate networks of channels and aqueducts. These lifelines brought water to the terraces, sustaining crops through both dry spells and cold snaps. The wisdom guiding these systems was passed from one generation to the next, each improvement a legacy written in flowing water over rocks and time. The crops themselves tell a story of subtle selection and discovery. Hardy grains, such as barley and buckwheat, were chosen to endure short growing seasons and biting frost. Root vegetables burrowed into the warming earth, guarded from icy winds. Green patches, meticulously tended, were more than food sources. They symbolized human perseverance amid daunting odds, each sprout a quiet victory against the cold. Animals, too, played a crucial role in these high places. Hardy yaks and goats were treasured companions, well suited to navigate rocky slopes and withstand harsh weather. Their milk, wool, and meat formed the backbone of daily sustenance. Livestock were often more than resources. They were woven into local myths, family identities, and festivals, standing as both survival tools and cherished symbols of resilience. Resourcefulness extended beyond field and flock. Homes were insulated with dried grasses, mud, and stone, fashioned to trap daytime warmth and shield against nighttime chills. Firewood, scarce at these heights, was gathered with care and supplemented by dried dung. Every household item, from woven baskets to wooden ploughs, revealed the hidden artistry of utilitarian need, shaped by hands accustomed to challenge. Community cooperation blossomed in these conditions. Shared labour made daunting tasks manageable, whether building a new terrace or maintaining mountain paths. Festivals and communal meals offered respite from toil, forging bonds over shared hardships and lean harvests. This spirit of unity was vital, for in such isolated places, every life depended on the collective knowledge and strength of the village. Seasons dictated the rhythm of work and rest. Planting was a race against the lingering chill, and harvest a celebration before the snows returned. During long winter months, families gathered by the hearth, spinning thread, recounting legends, and planning for the coming thaw. These cycles of hope, effort, and patience intertwined daily survival with ancient customs and dreams for the future. Ancient plant knowledge became a quietly powerful tool. Herbs and wild roots were gathered with reverence, their uses for food, medicine, and ritual carefully preserved across centuries. Elders would teach the young to identify each plant, knowing exactly where life-saving leaves or nourishing tubers could be found. In the Himalayan wilds, every bit of knowledge was a seed of survival, kept alive in shared memory. Looking across these frost-dusted terraces, one sees more than mere fields or flocks. They are mosaics of history, ingenuity, and unyielding spirit. Generation after generation, Himalayan peoples turned adversity into opportunity. Their survival, sometimes scarce, sometimes abundant, was knit from patient wisdom and communal perseverance, a lesson echoing across snows and centuries, reminding us that even in seeming desolation, life finds its root. Chapter 8. Bridges to the World Trade and Pilgrimage. In the icy silence of the Himalayas, connections to the outside were rare and precious. Yet, hidden paths wound beneath snowy passes, binding the kingdoms to distant lands. These age-old trails were more than routes for salt and silk. They were arteries through which stories, ideas, and faiths flowed, carrying subtle changes into even the most secluded valleys. Lonely traders braved perilous mountain trails, their caravans laden with rare goods turquoise, barley, wool, and tea. Each merchant's journey was a testament to both courage and necessity. Along these treacherous routes, languages intertwined and strangers shared shelter, making every encounter a fleeting bridge across vast divides. Trade shaped not only economies but also the very fabric of Himalayan life, quiet yet enduring. Pilgrimages, too, charted unseen courses between high kingdoms and the outside world. Guided by faith, pilgrims set foot on ancient paths seeking sacred sites tucked into the cliffs. Every step was both an act of devotion and a quiet resistance against isolation. Along pilgrim trails, songs, rituals, and sacred objects wove together, cultures gently blurring rigid boundaries drawn by snow and stone. Season after season, these paths pulsed with life. As summer snows melted, valleys echoed with the sound of distant bells, colourful flags fluttering at mountain passes. Caravans and pilgrims alike found temporary kinship in the journey trading news, offering blessings, learning new prayers. These fragile connections carried hope through the harsh, unyielding landscape, linking worlds otherwise lost to each other. Encounters with outsiders were rare and unforgettable. Sometimes foreign priests or wandering scholars arrived, their arrival rippling through the valleys like a hidden wind. Their tales of distant empires, new beliefs, and unfamiliar customs gently unsettled tradition. Yet even the most guarded villagers listened in wonder. These brief meetings left behind seeds of curiosity, nurturing a quiet openness amidst enduring caution. For the Himalayan kingdoms, isolation was both shield and burden. Distance protected unique traditions, yet also intensified longing for connection. Trade and pilgrimage became windows to a broader world, tempting imagination beyond familiar ridges. Through every exchange a piece of silk, a whispered prayer, a shared bowl of butter-teeth mountain peoples kept their worlds broad, even as the snows closed in. Ritual objects, spices, and textiles crossing the Himalayas did more than fill storerooms. They influenced art, attire, and beliefs, inspiring new festivals and fusing old gods with fresh legends. The scents of faraway valleys mingled in highland temples, and distant symbols found their place on prayer flags. Even subtle changes from trade and pilgrimage were embraced, slowly weaving foreign threads into sacred traditions. Kingdoms fiercely guarded their mountain passes, wary of threats from below. Yet, out of necessity, bridgestone, wood, or simply mutual trust spanned river gorges and diplomatic divides. Agreements over salt and safety, rituals of welcome, and shared feasts reflected a balance. Openness was always delicate, a careful dance with outsiders to safeguard both survival and sacred custom. Despite isolation, the Himalayas were never truly closed. Stories of miraculous traders, lost pilgrims, and foreign sages became part of local lore. Over time, legend and history fused, and the outside world found quiet echoes in song, story, and sculpture. Through these hidden bridges, Himalayan kingdoms remained not just guardians of tradition, but also tireless gatherers of the world's wonders. Every pathway traced by calloused feet or whispered in prayer minded the Himalayan peoples that their world was far larger than the mountains alone. Though each kingdom clung fiercely to its identity, it was the soft touch of these connections, the unnoticed trade of words and wonders, that brought the greatest richness. In silence and snow, the bridges still hold, timeless as the peaks themselves. Chapter 9. Storms and Shadows. Trials of the Kingdoms. The high Himalayan realms have always faced trials as formidable as their cliffs. Seasons sometimes arrive with biting winds that strip the land bare, testing the resolve of both ruler and farmer. When winter tightens its grip, days grow short and hope feels distant. Through icy storms and relentless snow, the people develop rituals to winter is not their only adversary. Sometimes dark clouds build from the horizon, bringing not just storms of nature, but shadows cast by threats beyond the mountains. In centuries past, invading armies crossed the perilous passes, lured by tales of hidden riches or sacred relics. For those living above the clouds, preparing for such invasions became a somber ritual, uniting villages and forging resilience in the face of relentless uncertainty. When threats from outside emerged, be they conquerors or colonial ambitions, whispers of danger travelled quickly along messengers' paths. The kingdom's walls and fortresses weren't only stone and earth, but alliances of trust, a network of watchers and signal fires ready to awaken the mountains. In moments when all seemed lost, ancient oaths and kinship became their strongest shields against the encroaching shadows. Hardship has a way of shaping souls. The people learned to read the wind, interpreting the first flakes of snow or the call of distant birds as warnings. These subtle signs were woven into stories shared by firelight, making memory a guide through uncertainty. In times when food was scarce, they turned to ancient stores, shared grain, and sang songs that kept spirits alive till spring's return. In quieter seasons, shadows lingered in subtler forms. Disease sometimes reached even these remote peaks, arriving with traders or travellers. The response was a ritual of unity, prayers offered at cliffside shrines, trusted healers tending to the weak, and the entire village watching over each other. The mountains were both shield and prison, offering safety yet demanding constant vigilance. The rise of modernity brought new kinds of storms. Roads carved into mountainsides connected the kingdoms to distant cities, but also brought change and confusion. Ancient rhythms were disrupted by new technologies and unfamiliar customs. The elders found themselves in a delicate dance, balancing the wisdom of their ancestors with the uncertainty carried by visitors from distant lands. With these intrusions, age-old ways sometimes clashed with outside expectations. Young ones felt temptation in the stories and goods from beyond the peaks, while the old worried about vanishing traditions. Yet, amid moments of tension, families gathered around firesides to retell tales of past adversity, drawing strength from generations that had endured before them and reminding each other that change could be faced together. Even during crisis, the Himalayan kingdoms were masters of adaptation. When crops failed, they traded medicinal herbs and crafted sturdy tools to barter with neighbouring villages. Ritual festivals were extended, not abandoned, continuing to unite people through dance, colour and shared hope. Their ability to bend, not break, in the wind was the true testament to their enduring spirit among the clouds. At night, amid the echo of storms or distant drums of conflict, leaders gathered to make decisions. Their council chambers, dimly lit with yak butter lamps, became places where wisdom was valued above rank. Experienced voices weighed tradition against necessity, sometimes making sacrifices for the safety of all. These moments of quiet determination defined the fragile strength within these secluded kingdoms. As each shadow passed, whether storm, invasion, or change, the kingdoms emerged altered but unbroken. The shared hardships became legends, passed down like family heirlooms. Above the clouds, every scar on the earth and in the heart became a reminder that life, though fragile, could thrive against almost impossible odds. Such was the enduring hope of the Himalayan kingdoms, even in their darkest hours. Chapter 10. Reflections in Mist. The legacy endures. As the first golden rays pierce the early morning haze, we stand at the threshold between what once was and what quietly persists. In this gentle light, echoes of vanished rulers and resilient people drift through the valleys and passes. Their stories, like the lingering mist, shape every stone and shadow. We begin our contemplation, inviting careful reflection on these enduring heights. The old kingdoms, though transformed by winds of change, have left indelible imprints on the land and hearts of their people. Traditions softened by time still ripple through daily rituals, while ancient philosophies continue to inform the choices of those who remain. The mist, rising from sacred rivers, veils memory and invites us to listen. In these quiet moments, legacy lives on, adapting to the subtle rhythms of a new era. Each stone stupa, each prayer flag fluttering along the ridges, whispers of resilience. The stories told beside remote hearths and among steep terraces give meaning to every sunrise. People carry old wisdom in silence and in song, deftly weaving them into modern lives. As the clouds part, we begin to see not just kingdoms lost, but enduring ways of seeing, living, and believing. Change does not always erase, but often deepens history. Within these lands above the clouds, the spirit of the kingdoms finds new forms. Local festivals light up villages, blending ancient myth with fresh hope. Elders gather to recount tales of courage and endurance, sharing laughter and solemnity in equal measure. The past is cherished, not as static legend, but as a living presence in everyday decisions and sacred ceremonies. Here, legacy is not only remembered but constantly renewed. As the world grows ever more connected, the remote valleys remain steadfast in their quiet beauty. Modern roads may wind through once untravelled passes, yet the silence of dawn is still respected. Each footprint on the mossy paths honours countless travellers before. The stoic beauty of the homelands, rugged, gentle, and unresolved, reflects both survival and surrender. In the mist, there is history's gentle persistence waiting to be understood anew. Passing through the swirling mist, there comes a sense that these kingdoms were protectors not only of land, but of ideas, the sanctity of balance, patience, and reverence for all life. Their legacies are felt in the quiet welcome at a monastery door, the careful terracing of a hillside, the sharing of simple meals. Each action, each tradition, rewards those who pause to look deeper, to notice what endures softly amid shifting clouds. Reflections in the mist reveal stories often forgotten by the louder march of history. Here, silence is not emptiness, but a vessel for wisdom. Gentle voices pass along old teachings, allowing new generations to decide what is worth carrying forward. The world beyond may move quickly, but the lives led here savour the slow unfolding of dawn, the renewal in each ancient practice. In these moments, legacy becomes both memory and continuous creation. Through the lattice of mountain peaks, ancestral spirits linger. Their presence is felt not only in sacred texts, but in every gesture of hospitality and perseverance. The philosophies born from hardship and devotion give meaning to seasons, to migrations, to the careful stewardship of land. This wisdom remains available to anyone who listens, not only to the stories themselves, but to the compassionate silences that cradle them. When the mist finally dissipates, what stays behind is more subtle than any monument or crown. It is found in the humility of shepherds, the patience of artisans, and the unity of neighbours tending to shared gardens. The teachings of these Himalayan realms ripple outward, offering guidance for those seeking resilience, balance, and peace in their own lives. Their true endurance lies in quiet adaptation, never loud, but always present. So let us close the journey, not with farewells, but with gratitude for mysteries and lessons that remain just out of sight, waiting to be rediscovered. The legacies of these kingdoms will continue, in gentle rituals, wise silences, and the stoic beauty of lands shaped by mist and memory. As you breathe with these final images, imagine what wisdom might still be hidden, ready to reveal itself in the softest morning light.